Find your center. The oil spills finally stopped at day 107. The Michigan gubernatorial race is now down to 2 goobers. Helen Thomas and Elmo, what do they have in common? Carolyn Cheeks, Kilpatrick, solar flares, and much, much more on Third Rail Politics with me, the Hippie Conservative. Hello, Earthlings. How you guys doing? Welcome to another Third Rail Politics with me, the Hippie Conservative, Commander HipCon, the bastard gene splice of Ann Coulter and Tommy Chung, right in front of your very eyes in multicolors. How you guys feeling today? I'm doing fairly well, fairly well. It's been a little rough weekend, a little rough week, but I'll get into that a little bit later and talk to you guys about it a little bit. What's all been happening? Okay. Alrighty. We got the oil spill in the Gulf. Finally stopped. It's official. They've pumped a bunch of the heavy mud into it and put the stop on it. But I really want to stress this. We don't want to get lost on this, guys. We don't want to forget who the villains are. I am a big fan of vilifying villains. I think it's the right thing to do. And in this case, the villain is BP. That's all there is to it. Now, that's not all oil companies. That doesn't mean that all oil. It doesn't mean anything like that. What it means is that BP seriously screwed up. And this comes down to the point that we can't forget. A lot of times we get so hung up in the crisis. And early on in the crisis, there's always the idea that we should not go looking for who to blame until we clean it up. Okay, the house is on fire. Let's not worry about who started the fire. Let's get the fire out. Okay, now the fire's out. Once the fire's out, I want to know who the hell set the fire. So we should be looking into this. This comes to another point, too. When you have something like this, the cry is always regulation. And regulation is a good thing. But enforcement of regulation is far more important. We can't have a situation, and remember I was talking to you guys at the last show about how nobody's really been punished for the economic crisis. Barney Frank has not been punished. Christopher Dodd's not been punished. Nobody's really been punished for this. And the same thing holds true with the BP. The guy that just walked off with $1.6 million, the chairman and CEO of British Petroleum, and I think his name was Hansen. And there's going to be a lot of other people that are in BP that are going to walk off with tons of money. And in fact, they may even get rewarded for the way that they handled this crisis and the PR that they had. But we can't lose sight of it. You don't really need tons of regulators. We have a strange philosophy. I have a saying that I'd rather train the dog than build a bigger fence. I don't have to worry about my dog if I make my dog worried that I'm going to kick his ass, for lack of a better term, for jumping the damn fence. At a certain point, I won't have to worry about the fence. It's kind of like putting an electric fence up around cattle. You don't have to worry about the cattle being able to crash the fence. Once they get shocked a few times, they're going to realize they shouldn't do it. Same thing. If we allow BP to get away with this completely, and then we tell them, oh, the only thing we got to do is try to stop them, then the idea for them is just try to find another way to get through the fence. They don't have to worry about the shock. What they need is the shock. If we can find, we have to structure a way that these CEOs are held responsible for what they do. Now, I'm not saying that if an accident happens, that CEOs ought to be drug out. However, when you look at these people, they should be punished for things that they did knowingly. And there should be serious investigations into BP in this Hansen. He tries to run off as soon as the damn oil spill is being, oh, I fix that, I'm out of here. Thinking that we'll forget who he is. But I want to look into it. I want to look into whether they lobbied to try to have waivers signed so that waivers put it, if they had bureaucrats that looked the other way as they violated all kinds of rules. This happens with the mining industry all the time, where you see that they had 10 violations, 100 violations before they had a collapse. If they know that their employees are coming to them, and they know their employees are saying, hey, wait a minute, man, this could blow up. Hey, man, wait a minute, this could collapse. You don't want to have a situation where they can turn an idle eye to it and then have a catastrophe and act like they didn't see it coming and not be punished for that. They violated the regulations. They violated the rules. What's the point of us putting more regulation, people, if we're not going to punish them for it? Okay. There's been some really wild stuff going on. I don't know if any of you guys know this, but we're about to be hit with a solar flare. I mean, how many people know that? John, did you know that? Have you heard that? I can't hear you, buddy.
I didn't hear that, no.
Yeah, they just had one of the largest solar flares that they've ever recorded, and it's hurtling toward the Earth right now. It creates a plasma field, which is a magnetic field and radiation field that comes at the Earth, and you're gonna see some great light shows. The aurora borealis is going to be brilliant today, and it probably won't cause a whole lot of trouble. But the last time that this happened, that was the last worst one that they've ever had. They didn't really know what was going to happen with this. They were afraid that it was possible that it could destabilize the ionosphere, which protects us from being barbecued alive. And they didn't really know that. And by the way, they didn't tell us that time. They didn't really know. They said the magnetic field was so strong that if you were out in space in an unprotected way, it would, and I love this example, it would pull the iron out of your body. My God, I mean, that's incredible. We have spacemen that are up there right now, astronauts that are up there, and we don't have spacemen. We have astronauts. Spacemen have the little things. We have astronauts that are up there right now, but they are shielded from it, and they're up there right now, and they shouldn't have to worry. It could destabilize, from what I understand, it could destabilize some satellites and some other stuff. They know from the measurements they took on the last one that this one's really not going to cause any grief. The thing that bothered me a little bit about the other one is that they didn't tell us anything about it until it was over, which led me to believe that that if there was an asteroid crashing into the Earth and they knew they couldn't stop it, they wouldn't tell us. And that's kind of frightening. It's kind of like the blue pill, red pill thing, with the Matrix. If there's something horrible that's going to go on, do you want to know or do you not want to know? Now, I'm the kind of guy, I want to know. I want to know what the hell's going on. Now, there would be the argument that there might be panic and that, it could be 100 times worse, and maybe there could be panic that's unjustified. I can understand that. But on a personal level, I want to know these things. Okay, Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick, House Representative, lost her job here in Michigan. Yeah, John's in there clapping. We're from Michigan here, and we've been following what I call the Kwame Kilpatrick clan, and this because Kwame Kilpatrick I don't like an aristocracy at all. I didn't like Bush. I didn't like Hillary Clinton. I really don't think that we should have the Kennedys. We should have any of these people. This isn't the way it was supposed to be. It's not what our founding fathers intended. We need to have people that come, serve, and then leave. As a matter of fact, I would be all for banning anybody from that direct family from running again for a period in time. But I know that that's not really what America's all about. We're all about people being able to achieve, people being able to do. Maybe you shouldn't be punished. I mean, if any of you guys got any thoughts on that, you can call me up and we can talk about it, or email me. By the way, I'm going through some of my emails. You people are harsh. Okay, very, very harsh. But I'm still waiting for the email where, we had one that somebody was talking to me a little bit about Nelson Mandela and how I pointed out that Nelson Mandela is a murderer. I had that one, and we went over all of that. But for the most part, attacking my looks, I know I'm not pretty. You're not telling me nothing like that. I can't see you.
Isn't that vicious? People can't help how you look.
Absolutely. I'm not a pretty guy. If I was, I'd be on mainstream media.
You said your wife's hot, so hey,
my wife is gorgeous. I think it would surprise all of you, but I have an extremely large penis, which helps me. No, I'm just kidding, and I can't. Well, actually, I can prove. No, I think I probably better not. Okay. But yeah, let's keep it a family show, at least at some level. Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick, and in case you guys don't know, the Kilpatricks are a whole family. His mother was a House rep, and Kwame Kilpatrick in Detroit was the great hip-hop mayor. He came in and under a lot of fanfare and everything else. He was supposed to be the world's first hip-hop mayor. And, of course, all of our local politicians like Jennifer Granholm snuggled right up to him because they liked the publicity. And then he got caught having an affair, which isn't that big a deal. But he used these officers were going to reveal it, and to make a long story short, they paid him off with over $8 million of Detroiters' money. And that's where it becomes my business. And so then his father got involved in it. And there was actually another woman, Conyers, Monica Conyers, who was a city council woman. And her husband is John Conyers, who was another House rep. I mean, it's like a freaking, it's like the mafia around here anymore. And so Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick has suffered that. Now, she was never really accused or caught up in any of it. But I think at a certain point when, you know, her husband, her son, and everybody else is in it, I think that there's a presumption, and probably accurate, and I don't want anybody jumping into, we around here at Third Rail Politics, we like to stay focused. I like this quote. I don't spend much time on conspiracy theories. Reality is bad enough. And that's the way I feel about it. But still, I can understand that a lot of people looked at her, and her family drug her down. That's all there is to it. And Kwame is her son, and I think that there was a certain feeling that there's no way that she couldn't be involved in it. And goodbye, Carolyn. Tough shit for you. No sympathy. Okay, let's get in. Okay, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, and that's the president of Iran. He got attacked the other day. So they love the way, and this is typical of the kind of totalitarian government that's over there in Iran right now. And what it is that the media is controlled. This is the scariest thing. That's why you people gotta love this stuff like this. That Steve Myers and John Wilson are doing with virtually no pay. And we're doing with virtually no pay. And everybody that does shows here on Flint Talk Radio does with no pay. We're that committed to guerrilla radio. We're that committed that we think that there always ought to be a media that's dissenting against whatever's going on at all times. This is the fundamental part of America that makes it great. I'm not going to wrap myself in the flag like I did the last time I went on that rant. Okay, but they immediately after Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was attacked, some of the Arab media started reporting on it, and then they slowly downgraded it, and then their media source came out and said, "Oh, all it was somebody threw a firecracker in celebration of what a wonderful president he was. He born from his mother's immaculate vagina or whatever." And they carried on for 20 minutes about how wonderful he was. I mean, somebody tried to bomb the damn guy. His people, by the way, hate his guts. And there's a really interesting thing, I think. But I think things are really interesting that some other people might not. And if you're watching the show, maybe you're or you've been watching the tapes. This is something that you might even think about. That I love things that are going on in other countries, and in this case, especially if it's the people rising up against a tyrannical government. And in this case, Iran. There's been a huge amounts of hits on YouTube out of Iran for the song Pink Floyd's version of Another Brick in the Wall. And it's done. I just watched it before I came here, and that's why I wrote it down as something to talk here. And one of the things, what it is, it's a different video. And actually, Roger Waters says that if you download the song, and he'll take that 99 cents that's off of one of the iTunes or one of the other sites. He'll take half of that money and he'll give it to Amnesty International to try to work to free the people of Iran who are under a terrible regime. Now, Iran, sometimes, always separate. I badmouth France. I do not badmouth French people. Unless you're some of the French people that advocate incest and having sex with children, and then you can kiss my holy ass. But other than that, the French people are not the problem. The French government. The U.S. people are not the problem. Sometimes it's the U.S. government. The people in Iran are not the problem. It's the mullahs. It's the ayatollahs that are running it. By the way, for those of you that don't know, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who's the president, he doesn't run it. It's the Security Council that runs the entire country. He's nothing more than a puppet that's put up there as a face of Iran. But he has no real power. The Ayatollah Khomeini is the one that actually runs Iran. He's called the supreme leader. And this guy is a complete fundamentalist whack job. I mean, far off into space as you could possibly want. He's the guy that has Sharia law, wants people to be stoned, women to be stoned for wearing short skirts, for not wearing their hijabs, and other things like that. But Iran is actually a very westernized country. It's because Iran was run by the British for a long time. And a lot of you guys are probably too young to remember this, but we had a guy that was pretty much a puppet, too, for a while. There was a puppet democracy. His name was the Shah of Iran. And that guy ran for a while before they had the revolution, and these mullahs all took over. So they've had a lot of freedom. And the thing about freedom is it's easy to deny, hard to take away. People always have a hard time when you take anything away from them. That's why you should be careful about what you give them. You don't want to give them something that might do them harm, because it's hard to take it back away from it, especially if they're enjoying it, no matter what it happens to be. But speaking of radical right-wing whack jobs, I live on the edge of Livingston County, and it just so happens that the district includes this guy, Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers is a senator, and a U.S. senator, or actually he's a U.S. House rep, I'm sorry. And he's asking for the death penalty for WikiLeaks contributors. If it goes so far as to endanger our troops, which is a broad definition. Now, I am a fan of WikiLeaks. I think that WikiLeaks is a great thing. I understand you got to be careful. We don't want to ever put our soldiers in danger. However, as a person that grew up with Vietnam going on, and when I was in school, I was very lucky. I was too young, even though I look like 100 years old. I was too young to go to Vietnam. My brother Mike, on the other hand, was right on the verge of going in to Vietnam. And, I mean, he had his draft card. He did his physical, A1. He was ready to be shipped off. We were talking about nice places in Canada, things like that, to save him. So I remember what it was like. And one of the worst things that was going on in Vietnam was the suppression of what was really happening. People would come back, friends of mine, and they would come back and they would tell these horrible stories about what was going on there. And at the same time, you would see this general or that general standing up and saying, oh, yeah, everything's going fine. We're winning. Yeah, did we win, folks? And now I'm seeing a replay of this in Afghanistan. So I want to see that stuff. I want to see what's really going on. I don't ever, once again, we don't stereotype here. You don't blame the military for the actions of a few. A lot of you are also too young to remember Lieutenant Calley. Lieutenant Calley was this guy during the Vietnam War, and there was a whistleblower of sorts that came out, and they also wanted this guy hunted down too, by the way. And Lieutenant Calley went into this village, and you have to understand what these guys went through. And to you Vietnam veterans, I'm not disparaging you at all. You guys are wonderful. I know what you went through. It was a horrible, horrible thing. You're heroes in my world. But it was very tough on you guys, and you guys know what I'm talking about. There was children that would walk up to you with hand grenades because their family had been killed and they were recruited. There was villages that would draw you in saying they needed water or whatever, and then jump out of little spider holes, which are little trap doors in the ground, and the soldiers would gun you down. And they would have you looking at things, saying there's people set you up to be killed. And Lieutenant Calley got so tired of it that he went into this village and literally just murdered every single man, woman, child, dog, cat, goat, whatever in the whole village. And one of the people in his troop actually came up and came forth and said that this had happened. And Lieutenant Calley got in a big trial. And one of the main reasons that I remember Lieutenant Calley, by the way, is that John Sinclair, who was a kind of a hippie radical at the time, got arrested.
I got a picture of him. You want to throw it
up? Can you throw a picture up?
Yeah, I got a picture of him.
Yeah. Why? Isn't John amazing? I mean, why in God's name would you have a picture of John Sinclair? I can't hear you.
Tom Sumner interviewed him a few months ago.
Oh, really?
I got pictures on his file, so I'll bring him right up.
Oh, that's awesome. Interesting side note. I've actually had a chance to talk to John Sinclair myself. I have an autographed picture of him back in my house. John Sinclair was vilified. There he is, John Sinclair. All right. That actually, you know what? That's a rather new photo of him, and it looks exactly like what he looked like when I was talking to him. He came to the university where I was working, and I just happened to get a chance to talk to him. But and by the way, he was very cordial and very nice to me. I sat down and talked to him for a good half an hour. He gave me a lot of his time that he really didn't need to give, and he actually told me, which was rather inspirational. He said, "It's people like you," and I don't mean to stroke my own ego, but he says people like you that are the revolutionaries of now that are going to stop what's happening.
Did you also, you going to tell them about the local connection of him? He's from Flint.
Oh yeah. He's local. Yep, he's local connection. What they did was he went to Ann Arbor, and as he was in Ann Arbor, and this is his own words, when he went into, he was an anti-war demonstrator, and he was pro marijuana, and one. Oh, there's what he looked like back in the day. There we go. And when he came back out of giving this speech there, an anti-war speech in Ann Arbor, he told me that he knew that the FBI and everybody else was following him. And he said, I would never have brought any pot or anything else with me. And he said, but he said, if I did, I most certainly would not have just left it sitting in my open ashtray in my VW Bug, which is what happened. And he said, no sooner did I get in my vehicle, I turned around, and this is his words, I turned around and looked in my ashtray. And this is his words that spoken to me. I looked in my ashtray, and I saw 2 joints. And I immediately reached for him, and when I did, the police grabbed me. He said they swooped down on me, surrounded my car, and arrested me. It was a setup. Now, for those of you that are a little bit, oh yeah, right, hippie dude got set up. I was set up. This happens. I mean, it really, really seriously happens. So, and I'll get into that story maybe another time. I don't want to wander too far off because we're already on sidebars. But John Sinclair ended up going to prison for 10 years for that, whereas Lieutenant Cowley was released for murdering an entire village. So I had a poster in my basement when I was a kid, and it was called 10 for 2. And it said exactly that. It showed the exact story. Some of the guys for Compassionate Care that are on right before me, I was telling them how I wanted to make a T-shirt back in the day when Tommy Chung got arrested. I made a reference to him earlier. And Tommy Chung got arrested for selling bongs on the internet. And and they spent $12 million prosecuting the dude, by the way, which is just incredible. But John Ashcroft, who was the Attorney General at the time, of the U.S., went after this guy. For what reason, I don't know. He wanted to make an example of him because they loved the war on drugs at the time. And at the same time, Bin Laden was still running free. So I was going to have a T-shirt made that had Tommy Chung on one side and Bin Laden on the other, and it would say "Captured" on Tommy Chung and "Still at Large" on Bin Laden. And I'd go, "Nice job, Ashcroft." Little off focus there. But another interesting thing about John Sinclair was that John Lennon actually came into Ann Arbor and did a free concert for him to try to get the guy released, and eventually he did get released. But that's to get back to the original point. That's the reason why I'm so focused on making sure that we can have people that speak out, because when you have people speak out, and then you have the CIA or the FBI or whatever trying to oppress these people, suppress their opinions, it becomes very dangerous. That's the line. I fear way more the censors than I do what people can say. Yes, there are times where we have to be careful. We all have to be careful in the media. We have to go through, if it would have been me in WikiLeaks, I would have went through the pages and released them slowly. Of course, that would have probably been dangerous because they would have probably tried to, stop it. But I think I would have tried my best to retract as much as I could possibly get out of it. I would take the names of some of the people that were working with us in Pakistan and everything else. And I think maybe that's a good clue for WikiLeaks. Maybe you guys should take a little bit of time to do your own self-censoring. However, as dangerous as that might be for our troops, as dangerous as that might be for Afghanistan, it's not as dangerous as having a war that's controlled in every aspect, and the media response to it in every aspect is controlled by our government. That's far more dangerous. I'm more worried about my soldiers, my children, my friends being put into a war in Afghanistan that they can clearly not win if that's the case. I say we have that debate. I say let's let people like McChrystal speak. there's, Obama started out by saying that he was going to have his own version of transparency and openness, the glasnost and perestroika. And right as soon as he gets elected, now all of a sudden he's shutting everybody down that has anything adverse to say about him. Some of my friends that kind of warned me about this, they said that this is a guy that's going to scream racism every time he's criticized. And I knew that was going to happen. I'm not going to lie to you. I knew it was going to happen to some degree. But I didn't know it was going to be quite as bad as this, where you have people that saying, if the Tea Partiers are criticizing Obama's spending policies and everything else, that automatically makes them racist because they wouldn't be doing this if it was George Bush. Think about this for a minute, people. If you're somebody that's against spending, you don't want to see us go in debt. You don't want us to burden our children in the future. Maybe you would be upset by Medicaid Part B. Maybe you'd be kind of upset at George Bush for that. And maybe you kind of steam a little bit, man, that bastard, he's running up the bill, and maybe we don't need that kind of entitlement. That's debatable. But then you come to the second thing, the TARP. That's where they paid off all these AIG and all these banks and everything. So he passes the TARP, and you're saying, man, it's $1 trillion. $1 trillion is a huge, huge, huge number. An amazingly large number. And you take that number and then you hand out these, and then people went, God damn it, I'm really getting mad. This is upsetting me a lot. That's a lot of money. We're going into debt. We had $800 billion that we spent on this Medicaid Part B. Add on to that another $800 billion that we had for this TARP program. Then you have a new president, and Barack Obama comes in, and he passes the Recovery Act, which was another $800 billion. Now I am really, really getting pissed. This is really too much money. And then you go to the health care bill and you go, that's it. Can't you see that it might just be the accumulative effect for these people? That it might not be the color of the man's skin. It might not even be his agenda, as perverse as it may be, in my opinion. It may just be that they've simply had enough. They just simply can't take anymore. It's not built in racism. Okay. I want to get into a couple more things. Okay, Proposal 8, and this is all the quick news, and then I'm going to talk about the gubernatorial race. I want to try to save a little bit of time, but I got something that I want to talk about in between that really quick too. California is going to be releasing, may have already released. John, if you could check that, see if the California Proposal B or Proposal 8, that's the gay marriage proposal. The Supreme Court, which is, and I want to say before we even pull this up, and I have not seen it, they are going to shoot Proposal 8 down. This is the Ninth Circuit Court in California. It's the most liberal court in the land. I watched some of the trial. The defense attorneys that were on it weren't even trying. They didn't call any witnesses. In some instances, the only witness that they even called up, it said that he was actually in favor of gay marriage. So I mean, it's basically a circus, and You can't have, oh my God, what's going on with the judicial system where you have people that are activists that are buying these judges that apparently have no conscience whatsoever to push their agendas through. It's just saying. Remember, in California, which is an extremely liberal state, one would argue the most liberal state, the voters in California 2 times banned gay marriage. The will of the people. The argument that they have against it is, and this is a valid argument, like that there might have been people that would have voted against women's suffrage, which is, women's suffrage means that women's right to vote. It doesn't mean that you want women to suffer. And then you also had slavery. If it was allowed to vote the entire United States, maybe that wouldn't have gone. So you can say there's a human rights issue and a civil rights issue, and I understand that. I really do. I have no problem. I have wonderful, wonderful gay friends. I really do. I'm not a homophobe. I'm a little freaked out by transvestites, but that's another story. But I have no problem whatsoever with the homosexual community. I have some great homosexual friends. I have some homosexual friends that are actually against gay marriage for their own reasons. But to draw this as a civil rights issue, I think, is an argument that I could make in front of the Ninth Circuit Court and win. I've told you guys before, there's issues about cross-parenting, cross-gender parenting. I have that issue. I have the issue that I don't think it's a civil right because I can't marry another guy. Neither can my gay friends. Why is that any different? If you come down to it only being marrying the person you love, now we have a whole nother problem. polygamy? I mean, if you can't limit it to the people, if you're saying I'm not going to limit who people can marry that they love, what's your argument against polygamy? You're going to set up your own moral standard of only one? Why only one? I mean, I don't understand where you're getting your morality from now. If we accept that we're going to have limits, then the limits are debatable. And I'm not saying that I'm against gay marriage completely. I'm just saying let's have the debate. Let's not have it in the Ninth Circuit Court. Let's have it in front of the people. If you, gay activists, if you guys get shot down in California or someplace else, work to change people's opinion on it. Work to get people to change what they think about it. Through whatever means you have, but don't throw out the will of the people, because people act adversely to that. Don't try to use judicial activism to get your point across. That makes people like me, who are on the borderline, very, very angry, because we feel like you're not paying attention to us. But my guess is, and John, did you find it?
Not a curve of information, really. It just talks about what it is about. And,
Okay.
Yeah,
So it hasn't been released yet.
it hasn't been released
Okay,
yet.
good, because I'm going to do a little prophetizing here, and I'm going to say that they're going to shoot it down against the will of the people of California, and it's a disgrace. And eventually, it might go to the Supreme Court. There's some argument about whether Anthony Kennedy, one of the Supreme Court justices, which way he's going to go. He's going to be the deciding vote on it. We would assume the other liberal candidates, certainly the most recent one, Elaine. Why can't I come up with her name? Elaine. Do you know her, John? Kagan. Yes, thank you. Elaine. It would have came to me eventually. See, my old rotten hippie brain doesn't always function at 100%. But Elena Kagan, she certainly would. Sonia Mayor certainly would vote for it, and then you can get the other Ruth Bader Ginsburg and I think Stevens would be the last one, and you would definitely have a situation where it would come down to Anthony Kennedy, and I would assume that Kennedy would go against it. So I think they're going to probably fight to keep this out of the Supreme Court. But this is not the way to go. Right now, we have over 30 states that are banning in one form or another gay marriage. Until we get some way to work this out, and the other issues about them being able to see their children, about them being able to adopt and everything, I have no problem with that. We can have contracts. We can have civil unions. We can work around this. We need to find a way that isn't so in your face with the people that look at marriage as a standing institution and part of what's traditional America, and that I could kind of understand that. But I really believe we can work this out. It's not that when I talk to my gay friends about it, they say, you're pretty much pro gay marriage. You just don't like the word. And I go, well, there's two things about it I don't like. I don't like the word, but it's really more important to me that we make sure that when we're judging the situation the children go on, that we take everything into consideration, and that includes whether or not a gay family is as healthy for the child as the alternative at that particular point in time. I'm going to say something that this is one of the ways that I can demonstrate how I feel about it. I always feel that it's better to have two parents, no matter what, and two lesbian parents or two gay men is better than one single parent. That's all there is to it. I mean, and that's how liberal my point of view is. But when it comes down to saying that a man and a woman is the same as a man and a woman, given all equal circumstances, I don't believe that. That's not true. That's just not, we have too much evidence about cross-gender parenting, and I'll get more into that another time. But because I know you guys love that one. I have so many things, every day. People say, how do you get things to talk about for an hour, Hippie? I mean, how do you do this? And the hour's the problem. I can't get everything out in an hour, and I have to try so hard to stay on point. Okay, I want to talk to you guys about something that's extremely personal. It turns out for both me and John. And I just want to talk about this for just a little bit. And I don't mean to drag you guys down or anything else like that, but it's kind of important. My younger brother died over the weekend. And John's friend, Tom, he found out, died today. This is a very sad day for Flint Talk Radio and for me and John on a very personal level. There was a similarity between the two guys, my brother and John's friend. And that's that both of them had a bit of a drug problem. They had fallen into the world of dependency. And in the end, that dependency killed both of them. Neither one of them died of drug overdose. Both of them had just simply wore their bodies down to a point where they could no longer survive. Dependency, people. Dependency is your enemy at all points of life, at all times. Dependency will make you atrophy. It'll drag you down. There are some things that you can't avoid. Both my brother and Tom were in great pain, and they were doing what they could to deal with what they had. But there's a larger message. My younger brother was on SSDI. He'd been on it all his life. And I don't know as much of the story about John's friend Tom. From what I understand, he just really suffered a lot of pain. My younger brother, ever since we were a kid, he sort of looked at it, and this is the larger lesson that I want to give you guys. He sort of looked at it as if you had a tummy ache, you didn't have to help mow the lawn. If you felt sick, you didn't have to go to school. After a while, it became, if I'm sick, I don't have to go to work. And then he sort of viewed himself at that point in time as kind of getting over. And I think a lot of people that ride the system view that way. And they start to think that they're really doing something, that, the fools have to work and everybody else has to go there. But something dies inside you when you do that. There's a self-pride that starts dying in you. There's that part of you that makes you proud of who you are. And this slowly died in him. And the ironic thing is doing the drugs, because he became happy to sit at home and doing the drugs. Doing the drugs and not working and not having the pride ate at him. I used to say, I heard a good quote about alcoholism. And I read it in a book, and this woman said that her father was an alcoholic, and every time he sucked off the bottle sucked off of him. And that's what happens when you become dependent. Dependency has a lot of different prisms. It's separated in a lot of different ways. It can be drug addiction. It can be sex. It can be gambling. It can be a dependency on other people. It can be a dependency on the government. All of them weaken you. You should only take those as a last resort. It sucks off of you as you suck off of it. And slowly, my brother became the thing that he pretended to be. And he atrophied. I'm sorry. And slowly, he became who he claimed to be. And eventually, people, it killed him. Now, I want to point out something. No, I'm going to take it. I'm sorry. One of the hardest things about being a journalist is you're supposed to always keep yourself separated. But it's not always easy. But now there's a move on by the Democratic Party to create more dependence. And that's where we get it together. And I want to point out something. I'm going to show you guys right now, and I've talked a little bit about how I believe through dependency, the Democratic Party in particular, for the votes, has destroyed the black family. I really believe this with all my heart. I know that it's true. Just as they destroyed my brother. The dependency has destroyed the black family. In the 50s, 60s, you still had unwed mothers, but you didn't have unwed families that were headed by unwed mothers. You had mothers that took care, grandmothers, or even single mothers, that were the mothers of the new mothers that would help take care of them. So they were run by matriarchs, and they had a closer knit family. Even white people would walk through black neighborhoods without fear. They would, they might not be accepted, maybe sneered at, but they wouldn't be shot at. They wouldn't be attacked. And more importantly, they didn't attack and kill each other. And all of that came from a lot of things, from not having a male structure in the family. There's a great story you guys can find on the internet about how, and I know it's not exactly a perfect analogy, but they had male elephants they brought to a park in Kenya. And they were reintroducing them. But because bull elephants are big and strong and very hard to sedate and hard to move, they didn't move any male bull elephants. They only moved the juveniles. And they also moved some cows, some older cows and everything else to form a herd. Well, the male elephants, as they grew older, started attacking rhinos and killing rhinos. And they couldn't figure out why. And then somebody said, hey, you know, in a normal elephant herd, there's males that'll keep the juveniles in line. And so they introduced 2 male elephants, 2 full-grown bull male elephants. And immediately they started disciplining the juveniles, and the juveniles stop it. This demonstrates itself in all kinds of different mammals. We are mammals too. In the absence of this, the males, and it all comes down. It causes the exact same problem: the misbehaving of the aberrant behavior by the juveniles, and it demonstrates itself all around. Now, how did we do this? How did anybody destroy the black? Like, well, everybody makes their own decisions, people. But to give people more money for having children out of wedlock, to telling black men that they don't have to pay child support and then not pursuing them for that child support or holding them responsible, having movies where we glorify them being pimps or players, all of that works, and we're still doing it. And now we're going to do it to the Hispanic people too. And that dependency, they'll tell you that they're doing it for your sake. They're giving you, but it's not, just like it's not always the right thing to give drugs to an addict. It's not always the right thing to give people the things that they want if you know it's going to cause a problem. And dependency on the government, dependency on anything causes those problems, and it'll atrophy you, and it'll kill you in the end. Now, when people look around, and I got this information, I thought this was pretty fascinating. Now, when you look around at the people who make the least in this country, now, you know, of course, every sociologist will tell you it's going to be the minorities, correct? Yes, absolutely. And you would expect that you're going to have the Hispanics and the African Americans, you know, one of the 2 big minority groups, who, by the way, overwhelmingly vote for the Democrats, would have the lowest wages. So that's not really that big a surprise, right? And you would be absolutely right. For whites, you know, with just a high school diploma, you know, you get a median age, medium salary about $32,000 for whites. You get $26,000 for blacks and $22,000 for Hispanics. So that's considerably lower. Now, one would look at that and say that's some kind of systemic prejudice, and you would assume that it is. Nah, wait here. Asians, who are a far smaller fraction of society, a minority that's far, far more of a minority than Hispanics or blacks. You could say, well, they're not as accepted. Hispanics have always been accepted. I grew up with Hispanics. I worked at the Spanish-speaking center. There was absolutely, you know, most of my Hispanic friends thought they were white. They didn't know they were Hispanic by our standards until the 60s, 70s when people started separating. They started dividing. It was really kind of weird growing up in my neighborhood because we had a Jewish kid, we had a Middle Eastern kid, we had, you know, all kinds of kids, all kinds of kids. We had an Asian kid. We had everybody on my block. Nobody thought they weren't white. Every one of my friends thought they were white, even though they were of different cultures. The only people that we separated, oddly enough, was black. But since that time, since the Hispanic population has been separated, embraced by the Democratic Party, and cultured into the dependency, their wages have been going down and down. And not only that, but their problems with their families have been going up. We now know, according to the U.S. Census Department and data from the natality data sites, National Vital Statistics System, and I hope I pronounced that word correctly, non-marital birth rates are highest right now for Hispanic women, followed by black women. This hasn't always been true, people. This has only been over the past 20 years. Slowly, their families are being torn apart for all the same reasons that I told you. For votes, that's what it's all about. Bust up the family, make them dependent. Then you can buy them off with social programs. Give me enough money, and I'll have half the middle class kill the other half. Give me enough money, and I'll use the people's own money to bribe them. Right now, the Hispanic people are doing the most suffering. But Asian people, and by the way, I also found that this is true also for Middle Eastern people. This is also, which, you know, who's more vilified right now than Middle Eastern people? For God's sakes, people. But they don't come here embracing the Democrat. And I'm not trying to be partisan here. I want the Democratic Party to move away from this. because I have great sympathy. I'm a registered Democrat, believe it or not. I have great sympathies with the Democratic Party. I have great sympathies with the working class people. I grew up in a working class town. I'm in here in one of the poorest areas of Flint. I grew up on the north end of Flint, if you guys do any research on that, in an almost all-black school. I have huge sympathies for the poor, but dependency is not the answer. It's only the answer to atrophy and death. That's the only answer. And Asian people in this country right now, white people are earning $32,000, but Asian people are earning $33,000 with the same. And when it gets up to college degree, white people are making, and this is according to the U.S. Census Bureau, with a college degree, whites are making $56,000. Asians are making $60,000. Whites are making, with a bachelor's degree, $51,000. Asians are making $51,000 also. Master's degree, $61,000. Asians jump up to $71,000. And it's also true with the Middle Easterners. Why? Why? I'll tell you why. Because there's a perception amongst corporations that if you become dependent, if you're that kind of person, that you might not be as good a worker. And that's what's drugged down black people. Black people didn't get brought over here as slaves because they were lazy. They got brought over because they were the hardest working people that they could find. And then during the course of the past 30 years, we've destroyed that. You've got to get away from this, people. We've got to get away from this. Okay. That was a rather sad note. Okay. I'm sorry that I had to do that. But I really felt that I needed to. And now I want to do something to lighten up a little bit. Now you guys know Helen Thomas, okay? Helen Thomas just recently she was a syndicated columnist. She sat in the very front row, which, by the way, I don't know if you know this, John, but that front row seat is now filled by Fox News. Fox News. Now, I'm not celebrating Fox News. I celebrate diversity of thought. And in the front row of the White House has always been all the leading liberal mainstream media, including Helen Thomas. And now there's a seat for Fox. And I can't, if the Obama administration had anything to do with this, I applaud them.
I loved Helen Thomas, though. I thought she was, I mean, in the Clinton era, she put some hard questions to him that I thought she was absolutely on target for. She held his feet to the fire.
I think she did. I think she did. And to be honest, she actually took a couple shots at Obama. But anyway, but Helen Thomas made a statement that just killed her career. She was 89 years old, so she was going daffy. And the only thing that she would ever say anymore is, how many more people you got to kill in Afghanistan? That was her only question. She kept repeating it over and over again for the past 8 years, so everybody was getting a little tired of it. But the bottom line is that she made a statement where somebody stopped her on the street and interviewed her and asked her, what she thought of the Israelis and what they were doing to Palestine. And she said, I'd tell them all to go home, meaning the Jews in Israel. And she said they're on occupied land. And then she said they should go back home to where they belong, to Germany and Poland, which, God only knows why they left there to begin with. I mean, I can't think of a single reason except for ovens. But anyway, there has been a revelation, and this was on the Jon Stewart Show, and I thought it was so funny that I just had to run this. Apparently, Elmo from Sesame Street was asked a question about immigration, and here's Elmo's response. Jackie, you read that?
Elmo believe in racial purity. Elmo blood not tainted. Elmo pure. Elmo hate mud blood.
Whoa. Elmo hate mudblood. That's the only thing that I've seen that's more stunning than the Helen Thomas thing. I just had to do that to lighten up the mood a little bit, for myself and for all of you guys. But let's go on. Now let's tackle. We got 15 minutes left, and I want to tackle the gubernatorial race here in Michigan. Now, I have to stroke myself a little bit, but if we could play it back, I would, but I can't really play it back. But last week, I told you guys that it looked like Pete Hoekstra was in the lead, but to watch Rick Snyder, that I thought that it was possible that Rick Snyder was the dark horse in this race, and he could come back. Turns out, I was right. This is what my wife tells me all the time to stop doing. She tells me, please stop this. Don't. And nobody likes it when you claim you're right, but, you got to give your own props, man. If you're not going to promote yourself, who the hell is going to do it? But I called that one exactly right. I also said that Verge Bernero was going to win, and that was another one. So now we're down to two. It's going to be Rick Snyder out of Ann Arbor. He was the CEO that worked with Gateway Corporation, which made computers, against Verge Bernero, who is the mayor of Lansing here in Michigan. And these two guys are going to head up, and I'm going to give you a little insight on what's going to happen, okay? Verge Bernero, now, I know less about him than I did about about Rick Snyder. But Virg Bernero is a very outspoken guy. He has a tendency to say off the cuff stuff that a lot of people would see as being a little bit off color, maybe. Okay, but that's not in politics. That's not a good thing. Sometimes it is, but when you start speaking off the cuff and you start saying things, you have to be more measured in your responses. Sooner or later, you might make a major gaffe like Helen, Thomas, and Elmo did. Which I'm pretty sure that's going to completely ruin Elmo's career, by the way. I mean, I think the executives over at Sesame Street are trying to figure out a way to get out of Elmo's contract.
Well, him and Helen Thomas can hang out together.
Yeah. Helen, I can see Helen sitting at the bar. I gotta send all them damn Jews back. And Elmo going, yeah, and the mudbloods too. So send them all back. It actually turned out that despite the fact that when I was here yesterday, it seems like yesterday, when I was here last Wednesday, there was a slight edge. It was 19% for Snyder, and it was 23% for Pete Hoekstra. And it turned out that Snyder actually captured 37% of the vote in a last-minute surge. And that was absolutely fantastic. I saw a poll that was probably 2 days after I was talking to you guys on Wednesday, and it showed that Rick Snyder had jumped up a little bit. And I think the reason is because we here in Michigan are getting a little sick of politicians. Also, Rick Snyder had some really funny lines. He was ragging on Buffy the Job Slayer, and he said, "I think we've had enough happy talk." I'm sorry, Jen. Just say it again because you kind of faded in and out.
We're getting sick of our politicians because we're thinking of adding a new hunting season into our repertoire there?
I'm not saying that we should or that we did, but I would apply for the license. Yes. I'm not really one that I'm not sharing an angle. Okay, I'm not really looking for a Second Amendment solution at this point. I'm not saying that there couldn't possibly be a point, but at this point, I'm not quite ready yet. By the way, that's a person that's the woman that's running in Nevada against the Senate Majority Leader, which is Harry Reid, and right now they're neck and neck in Nevada.
Reid, I think he's not gonna pull it out though. I think he's got people really pissed off at him. Right? They do.
He does, but the problem is Sharon Ingle is a nut. I mean, she really is. She's well, not. I mean, if you're more of a libertarian than I am. Okay. In my world, you know, just getting rid of the EPA, getting rid of Social Security, getting rid, a lot of these other things. And I mean, actually, that is the definition of third rail politics. You had something you want to contribute, John? Oh.
No, that sounds I just had visions of paradise, getting rid of not the EPA so much, but Social Security and all the other crap.
So when I was saying that, did you hear angels going, ha ha?
Saw bright light beaming down on me and stuff.
John was dreaming of his own private utopia there. Yeah, there's a lot of people, a lot of our friends, actually. And, and I got to have the most diverse stable of friends ever. I have people that go all the way from the spectrum of being ultra-libertarian to being utterly progressive liberal. And the reason is because I may not agree with everything that John says or John agrees with. But I love John's passion, and I love the fact that he's committed, and I love the fact that he loves his country. Now, whether or not me and John agree on what's the best path for his country is not as important as me respecting John's opinion. That's because, guess what, folks? I might not be right. And I have to make my best case. John makes his best case. And all my other friends, my friend Bob, who's the homosexual I was referring to earlier, and I'm sorry, Bob, I don't mean to refer to you like that, just my friend Bob, but I wanted to give it some context, who's a rather actually kind of moderate Democrat.
Can open up to a nickname that I'm not going to say. But
No, and it's even worse when you consider that his boyfriend's name is Neil. So it's Bob and Neil. No, I swear to God, that's just a bad joke. Bad hippie. John, give me. I'm gonna pretend like I'm a Shiite and I'm gonna beat myself with chains.
The good thing is his boyfriend's name is not Bob as well, so you can have Oral Roberts.
Oh, your puns are as sad as mine, young man. I hate to tell you that. But anyway, let's get back to the gubernatorial race. And what's going to happen here in Michigan, and I don't know if you guys are aware, but we just this last month, we finally, after, God, what was it, 3 years, we're no longer the very highest unemployment in the United States. And I still think they're going to adjust that back and put us back in it. We have been suffering so badly. we had a governor who pretty much pinned all her hopes on windmills. If that can, if that's any illustration of how bad her thinking was. Now, why she thinks that a state that was very dependent on the automobile industry could suddenly be producing windmills and be competitive when it's so hard for us to be competitive with automobiles. There is nothing. Look, there's nothing that you can do. Go back to my dependency thing. You can't do anything that's going to get you ahead that has to be subsidized. We have to have entrepreneurism. We have to have the great American spirit, invent things and do things. That not because somebody's paying you to do it, like I was talking about the Chevy Volt last week. Not because people are paying you to buy it, but because it's a good idea. We got to find a way to make it a good idea. It can't just be a good idea because I'm going to give you $10,000 to buy it. That's never going to work. It just goes around and around and around and around in a circle. You have to find some way that generates new product, a way that generates new things that are going to be the future in a way that's sustainable on its own merit. Meritocracy, which is a great word. It's where you're judged on your merit, not on dependency, on what you can produce. And and I want to be very clear, okay? The people, I'm not bad-mouthing people that have to be dependent. If you are, if you have to, I have a sister that's a paraplegic, so please don't send me no nasty emails about how insensitive I am. Who, by the way, is a teacher here in Genesee County, and despite being a paraplegic.
One of your family members teach?
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yes, it is. Yeah, John, I don't think you're alone in that thought. I think there's probably quite a few people that just picked themselves up off of the floor and said, "Oh my God, I hope she's not just like you."
I thought you should be a teacher myself.
I probably would have. I think I would have had to gone just a tad farther with my education, just a little bit. I would have actually enjoyed it because I really do love. I do love talking to kids. I have several what I call adopted kids that I look out for, that I try to take care of. They're all grown now, but I've known them all since they were knee high to a grasshopper, and I've always felt that in the end that's really what you're going to be judged on, the impact that you make on the future generations. Those are the things. Nobody's going to remember what car you drove. Nobody's going to remember what house you had. Nobody's going to remember what kind of a tie-dye T-shirt you wore. In the end, what people are really going to remember is the impact that you had on other people. Why do you think I'm here every day? I mean, this is my bed. This is what I want to do. If I'm going to be remembered, I want to be remembered for changing things, for trying to make the world a better place. And I know that sounds grandiose or megalomaniac or whatever, but it isn't. It's not the result. It's the attempt. I always told my kids that all I ever ask out of you guys is to try. Not to succeed. And that's what all I ask of all of you is just to try. And I don't want to be corny, but that's really all you have to do to please me is try. Try to make the world a better place. I don't care if you're wrong. I really don't. But you try. And that's what's important. Okay. All right. God, did we do everything? We had a sad moment. We had a family moment. We had a moment of philosophy. I think we pretty much covered it all. Did we today, John?
And also exposed that, racist Elmo, yeah.
Yeah, and I exposed another racist celebrity, so he falls in line with Mel Gibson and Helen Thomas and Michael Vick. Yeah, he's a racist against dogs, I guess, and several others. But anyway, I want to wrap up the show. I want to dedicate this show to my little brother, and may he rest in peace, and to John's friend, Tom. And I want to say thank you to Steve Myers and John Wilson once again for being crazy enough to put me on the radio. I can't imagine what you guys are thinking. But in the end, this is it, folks. This is Guerrilla Radio, the greatest thing that's happening, the truth in America, the people that stand up and say things because it's the right thing to do, the people that are backing it not for profit, but because we want you to hear all sides of the story. We want to hear the dissent.
Of course, we would welcome.
Of course, we would. It doesn't mean we wouldn't welcome actually making some money on this, guys. If it just happened, you guys want to contribute a little bit, or you really believe what we're talking about here. Kind of the antithesis of NPR, the other side. So thank you guys once again. This is the Hippie Conservative, Commander Hipcon signing off, and thank you guys all very much for listening. And have a great day. And